Welcome again. I'm going to continue this series on helping children to develop good character. And today I'll focus on compassion. Compassion, like all other virtues, is a part of a child's nature. Every human being is born with a proclivity for compassion. It's a natural ability to perceive another's well-being, to care about others' welfare, to aid others, to keep others out of harm's way, and even to avoid hurting others. Children are born prepared to learn about others, prepared to learn about themselves, and they're prepared how to conduct their relationship to others in a healthy and in a profitable way. Now, of course, you'll remember, but in order for this virtue or any other virtues to be brought to fruition, an environment is required that brings it to its highest potential. It needs a culture, it needs teaching, and it needs training. Now, I'm going to remind you again, we cannot control a child's eventual character. There's just too many variables, but we can have an impact on their development, and we can have a voice through teaching and through training that nudges them toward healthy character, and then therefore a relative degree of fulfillment and satisfaction in life. Children need practice and guidance to nurture what is natural compassion and empathy, randomly applied, into a consistent mode of behavior. Being kind toward others who are in need, helping others in appropriate ways, understanding the problems that different people have, and then knowing how best to help them. And we want to go from just it happening on occasion or by accident to something they do deliberately as a part of their character. In fact, I would suggest if we adults, the teachers, the parents, don't take the initiative to influence that development of virtue and character, someone else or something else is going to do it. It just happens. Children are being influenced all the time by external forces, many of which we have absolutely no control. So as educators, again, teachers and parents, it's plain we really should do whatever we can. Again, we can't totally influence the final outcome, but we have a lot to say about it. So this implies teaching them about compassion and providing opportunities to practice compassion. And when I use the word compassion, I include its synonyms, sympathy and empathy, and all the things that go with it. I'm just using the word compassion as a focal point. In my experience, I've noticed four things that can affect children and something that we adults can practice with them. The first is that the children have a natural tendency also, listen to this, to be mean and hurtful. And that's every child, not just some. Sometimes maybe it's due to jealousies, or it's due to envy or ignorance. They judge others. They don't know people from another race or another religion. Sometimes it's just plain old meanness. Sometimes children can be mean. And sometimes later in life, it's moral idealism. You're absolutely right about something, and then you have no hesitation at hurting others. These impulses, and these are vices, are also natural. They're within the children. And when children are allowed, or they allow themselves to act upon these vices, then the voice of compassion and the voice of sympathy and empathetic inclinations will be muted, and they'll be shut off, and oftentimes just dismissed, and the children will act on these vices. Now, as the educators in their lives, parents and teachers, we should be aware that children are like this and not ignore it. I know in my experience, very often when there's misbehavior with children, our first tendency as teachers and parents is to blame someone else. Something else is at cause, not realizing, no, our child is also capable of these same kinds of mean-spirited vices. They're just like this, and we shouldn't hide from it or be ashamed of it. It just is. We don't need to call them out for these root causes. They're not going to understand that. But instead, we should engage them in what I would call the second practice. These practices, four little practices I've seen, they all go together. We have to show children how to understand other people's story, to remain true to their natural disposition, to behave kindly, to help others and understand the problems of different people, children need to understand the stories of other people. Compassion, sympathy, and empathy are all automatic responses when we understand people, when we better understand and appreciate what has happened to them, their experiences, the situations they live in, their backgrounds. We're better able to reach out to them. We're better able to support them. We're better able to encourage them, and at times even be a help. At the core of the second practice, that is helping children make an effort to understand other people's story, is learning how to take the role of the other. It's a basic principle worldwide that we learn to understand other people before judging them, before acting toward them in any way that either help or to hurt them. This requires all kinds of conversations. You can imagine it's very easy for us to take sides of one child or another. I see this all the time in school. One child will come reporting another child, and this happens all the time. And of course, you want to react first. Just same thing with parents. You want to react. And it's good to begin to help our children take the time to understand why, what happened. Now, sometimes the other kid might have just been naughty and bad, and they should understand that too. And they don't have to accept that as being right. Nevertheless, the practice of asking why, how come this person is like that? When we permit children to act upon their jealousies or their prejudices or their lack of understanding, or then their meanness, we're permitting them to habituate that meanness, that judging spirit, that judging attitude, and they'll become a habituated behavior. So the child who is mean or who is doesn't honor other people, doesn't take the time to know about other people, they hold to their prejudices, their bigotries, all the way through life. Now, in this context, the third practice I'm going to propose is to help our children, help all children in our classes, our own children, proactively make friends. Now, of course, all children have friends and they always want their best buddies. And that's, once again, that's just normal. But they should be guided to learn how to make friends with everybody. That doesn't mean you're best buddies with everybody. That doesn't mean you have a sleepover with everybody, but you honor and respect every person you come across. To practice kindness toward everyone. Practice it, because it's against the nature of the creation of vices, and especially to learn about those in need. Practicing helping others in appropriate ways. Practice understanding the problems that different people might have. And then, of course, considering how to help them. We have to help children break out of their self-centered and selfish, narrow-minded perspectives and proactively reach out to others. Greet others. It's good to train children in the classroom or children or your own children. Say hello to everybody, smile, give a little wave. No need for a big conversation, but to everybody, you owe that kind of honor and respect. And occasionally you'll discover some need to help others and then how to do that. There's so many ways to foster this conversation at home and in the classroom, but remember that this conversation enables the good within them to grow into healthy habits. I am not living within my own self-centered world, but I break out as way of habit to make friends in varying depths of friendships, but to take the proactive approach that I can communicate with everybody in my social environment. This will lead to practices of compassion to become then a habit, and it will lead to their own sense of fulfillment and happiness later on. If they're not rescued from their own selfishness, their own self-centeredness, their own meanness sometimes, or injustices because of their prejudices, they're going to be miserable. Forget about the behavior. The behavior is a secondary thing. You're miserable when you are in an environment where you dislike, hate, you don't want to get along with others. You're the one who's miserable, not just the person that's affected by your behavior. Now, the fourth practice is to help people, help little children accept their own faults and failures and bad behaviors. and what results out of those. Sometimes we do things that are wrong because of underlying reasons that other people don't know. And for children to understand themselves, you're like that too. Remember when you behaved in such a way and you wanted to lash out at your brother or lash out at your sister, or you were excessively mean in the game at recess time? Let's take a look at why and to understand. And it was wrong, wasn't it? To own it, to accept it, because that is a root understanding toward other people. There's reasons why there's acting out. And sometimes you have to apologize. Sometimes you might have been right, but many times you have to make some kind of amends so that everything is done properly. You practice compassion upon yourself. You own your mistakes. You admit the problems you have created. Accept responsibility for the problems you cause. Then learn to forgive yourself and make amends, patch up things, make apologies where they need to be made. And in doing so, then that child becomes better equipped to have compassion on others. They understand what behaviors they see. There could be other causes, and there might be a way you can help. There might be a way you could aid others. Now, this is a lifelong process. You're not going to teach children to be compassionate overnight, but you can sow the seeds. You can nudge them in the direction through conversation, through situations that arise, that you teach them how to understand others' story and how to understand why they're behaving like they're behaving as a matter of habit. You see, when we teach children to be compassionate, I mean sympathetic, empathetic, we are also helping them to lead a happier life. As I said before, no one wants to be controlled by these vices of meanness and annoyance and prejudices and bias. They eat at us as an adult. Instead, to be exercised to offer compassion, help, aid, understanding, because we take the time to think about others' story. All right, I hope this was helpful.